A diplomatic ship, Terra's Pride, drifted silently through space, waiting for the most important meeting in human history. Ambassador Lisa Carter stood in her quarters, adjusting her formal blue uniform for the 10th time. Her hands trembled slightly as she checked her reflection in the mirror. Today, she would meet representatives of the Zephyrian Empire, the alien force that had conquered 12 star systems in the past 5 years. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the ship's corridors, checking on his crew. The Terra's Pride was not a warship. It carried no weapons, no shields, just diplomatic equipment and a crew of 43 humans who hoped to prevent a war. Jake had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years, but he had never faced anything like this. The Zephyrians had destroyed entire fleets without breaking formation. Their ships moved like clockwork, precise and deadly. Dr. Alan Foster sat in the ship's small laboratory, reviewing everything humanity knew about the Zephyrians. It was not much. They were tall, gray-skinned beings with 4 arms and large black eyes. They spoke in mathematical patterns and viewed everything through military logic. They had no art, no music, no literature. Their entire civilization existed for one purpose: conquest. Alan had spent months trying to understand how such a species thought, but every report from the front lines painted the same picture. Zephyrians were efficient, emotionless, and completely predictable. Lisa made her way to the ship's main conference room. The long table was set with Earth's finest china and crystal glasses. Fresh flowers from the ship's garden sat in the center, filling the room with a sweet smell. She had argued with the military advisors about this. They wanted a sterile, professional meeting room. Lisa believed that showing the beauty of human culture might help create a connection with their guests. Jake joined her in the conference room, followed by Dr. Foster and the rest of the diplomatic team. Through the large windows, they could see the Zephyrian ship approaching. It was massive, black, and shaped like a perfect triangle. No decorations, no unnecessary features, just pure function. The human ship looked like a toy beside it. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded mechanical and cold. "Human vessel, this is War Commander Thexval of the Zephyrian Conquest Fleet. We will board your ship in 15 minutes. Prepare for surrender negotiations." Lisa picked up the microphone. "War Commander Thexval, this is Ambassador Lisa Carter, representing Earth and all human colonies. We welcome you aboard the Terra's Pride. We look forward to discussing peace between our peoples." There was a long pause. "Peace is not the purpose of this meeting. You will surrender your territory or face destruction. This is the natural order." Jake looked at Lisa with concern. The Zephyrians clearly had no interest in actual negotiations. They expected humans to simply give up and accept defeat. Lisa squared her shoulders and straightened her uniform. She had faced difficult negotiations before, though never with aliens, who seemed to lack any emotion or flexibility. The Zephyrian shuttle docked with the human ship exactly 15 minutes later. Jake met the boarding party at the airlock. War Commander Thexval was 7 feet tall with pale gray skin and 4 muscular arms. His large black eyes showed no expression at all. Behind him stood 2 shorter Zephyrians in identical black uniforms. They moved in perfect synchronization, like machines. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, commander of this vessel. Welcome aboard." Thexval stared at him without speaking. His eyes scanned the corridor, taking in every detail. The walls were painted in warm colors and decorated with photographs of Earth landscapes. Music played softly from hidden speakers. The Zephyrian's head tilted slightly, as if trying to process something that made no sense. Jake led them to the conference room where Lisa waited. She smiled warmly and stepped forward with her hand extended. "War Commander Thexval, I am Ambassador Carter. Thank you for coming." The alien stared at her outstretched hand. After a moment, he touched it briefly with one of his 4 hands and pulled back as if he had been burned. This gesture serves no tactical purpose. Why do you perform it? Lisa's smile never wavered. It's called a handshake. It's how humans greet each other. It shows friendship and respect. Friendship and respect are inefficient concepts. We are here to discuss your surrender terms. Lisa gestured to the table. Please, sit down. Would you like some refreshments? We have water, coffee, tea, or fruit juice. The 3 Zephyrians remained standing. We do not require sustenance at this time. Present your surrender documents. Dr. Foster stepped forward, carrying a small wooden box. Before we begin official discussions, Ambassador Carter would like to present you with a gift as a symbol of human culture. He opened the box to reveal an ornate peace pipe carved from cherry wood and decorated with eagle feathers. Lisa lifted it carefully. This is a peace pipe, War Commander. On Earth, many of our ancestors used these in ceremonies to show their desire for peace between different tribes. Dexful stared at the object. His large eyes moved from the carved wood to the feathers to Lisa's face. This object serves no military function. What is its strategic value? It has no strategic value, Lisa said with a gentle laugh. Its value comes from what it represents. Hope for understanding between different peoples. The War Commander's head tilted again. His companions exchanged glances, the first emotion-like behavior the humans had seen from them. You present us with a non-functional object and claim it has value. This does not compute within our understanding of rational behavior. Jake tried to hide his surprise. The aliens seemed genuinely confused by the concept of symbolic meaning. Lisa seemed to sense this as well. She set the peace pipe on the table and sat down. War Commander, perhaps you could tell us about Zephyrian culture. What do your people value besides military conquest? Military conquest is the only value. It is the purpose of existence. Strong species dominate weak species. This is the natural law of the universe. Dr. Foster leaned forward. But what do you do when you're not fighting? Surely your people have families, hobbies, entertainment? All 3 Zephyrians stared at him in silence. Finally, Dexful spoke. Families are breeding units for producing soldiers. Hobbies and entertainment are unknown concepts. When we are not fighting, we prepare for the next fight. The humans exchanged worried glances. These beings had no concept of joy, creativity, or personal fulfillment. Their entire existence revolved around warfare and conquest. Lisa realized that traditional diplomacy might be impossible with such a mindset. At that moment, the conference room door opened and Buddy, the ship's golden retriever, wandered in. The dog had somehow escaped from the captain's quarters and was looking for his favorite humans. He spotted the gathering and trotted over to Lisa, tail wagging happily. The effect on the Zephyrians was immediate and dramatic. All 3 aliens stepped backward, their eyes wide with what could only be described as shock. Dexful raised all 4 arms in a defensive position. What is this creature? Is it a weapon? A surveillance device? Lisa reached down and scratched Buddy behind the ears, causing the dog to pant happily and wag his tail even faster. This is Buddy. He's our ship's dog. He's a pet. Pet? Define this term. A pet is an animal that we keep for companionship. We feed him, play with him, and take care of him because we enjoy his company. He makes us happy. Dexfall's voice rose slightly, the first sign of emotion they had heard from him. You maintain a non-productive creature that serves no tactical function? You expend resources on an entity that contributes nothing to your military capability? That's right, Jake said, unable to resist grinning. We love him. The 3 Zephyrians huddled together, speaking rapidly in their own language. They're mathematical. Speech patterns became faster and more agitated. Finally, Bexville turned back to the humans. This meeting is concluded. We must report these findings to our superiors. Your behavior patterns do not conform to any known tactical doctrine. We will return when we have analyzed this data. Without another word, the three aliens marched out of the conference room, leaving the humans staring after them in bewilderment. Buddy sat down next to Lisa's chair and looked up at her with his tongue hanging out, completely unaware that he might have just changed the course of galactic history. General Nancy Brooks stood in the underground command center, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, staring at banks of monitors that showed the positions of Zephyrian fleets throughout human space. 3 days had passed since the failed diplomatic meeting, and intelligence reports were pouring in from across the galaxy. The aliens were behaving strangely, and Nancy was beginning to understand why. The first report had come from the listening post on Titan Communications. Officer Dave Martinez had intercepted Zephyrian military transmissions, and the translation. Computers were having trouble making sense of them. The aliens seemed to be debating the tactical significance of something called a happiness animal and the strategic implications of resource expenditure without military gain. Dr. Alan Foster arrived at the command center carrying a thick folder of analysis reports. He looked tired but excited. General Brooks, I think we've stumbled onto something incredible. The Zephyrians aren't just confused by our behavior. They're completely unable to process it. Nancy turned from the monitors. Explain. Alan opened his folder and spread papers across the conference table. Every intelligence report shows the same pattern. Their military computers are running constant simulations, trying to decode human actions. They've assigned their best tactical analysts to figure out the strategic purpose behind keeping pets, decorating with flowers, and offering gifts with no practical value. And they can't figure it out? It's worse than that. Their entire worldview is based on everything having a military purpose. They literally cannot comprehend the concept of doing something just because it makes you happy. Their translators can convert the words, but the meaning is completely alien to them. Communications specialist Kelly Roberts looked up from her station. General, we're receiving more intercepted transmissions. The Zephyrian High Command has called an emergency session. They're classifying humans as a category unknown threat. Nancy frowned. Unknown threat? What does that mean? Alan consulted his notes. In Zephyrian military doctrine, there are 5 categories of enemy species: weak, moderate, strong, overwhelming, and extinct. This is the first time they've created a new category. They don't know how to classify us because we don't fit any of their established patterns. Dr. Claire Mitchell, the base psychologist, joined the group. She had been studying Zephyrian psychology for months, trying to understand how their minds worked. General, I think Dr. Foster is right. The Zephyrians have evolved into a purely logical, militaristic species. They've eliminated all creativity, humor, and emotional expression from their culture. When they encounter a species that bases many decisions on emotion and creativity, it breaks their analytical framework. Nancy looked at the star charts showing Zephyrian fleet positions. Most of them had stopped moving toward human colonies and were holding position, apparently waiting for orders. So what you're telling me is that our greatest weakness might actually be our greatest strength. Exactly, Alan said. Think about it. Every species the Zephyrians have conquered was probably logical and predictable. They could analyze their enemies' likely actions and plan accordingly. But humans? We do things that make no tactical sense. We keep animals for emotional companionship. We create art for beauty instead of function. We tell jokes just to make each other laugh. Kelly waved from her station. General, we're getting reports from the outer colonies. The Zephyrians are starting to probe our defenses again. But their approach is different. Instead of direct attacks, they're sending small scout ships to observe human settlements. Nancy made a decision that would change the course of the war. Dr. Foster, Dr. Mitchell, I want you to work together on something. If our unpredictability confuses them, let's give them more to be confused about. 2 hours later, Nancy was speaking via secure communication with colony administrators across human space. The plan she outlined was unlike anything in military history. On the mining station orbiting Kepler 442b, Station Chief Mike Turner received his orders with a mixture of disbelief and amusement. When the Zephyrian scout ship approached the station, instead of raising shields or powering weapons, Mike opened a communication channel. Zephyrian vessel, this is mining station Alpha 7. Welcome to our little corner of space. Before we discuss anything serious, would you like to see our weekly talent show? Tonight is comedy night. The response came 30 minutes later. Human Station, explained the tactical significance of comedy night. Mike grinned at his communications officer, Engineer Kate Williams. Well, every Thursday our off-duty miners get together and tell funny stories to make each other laugh. Kate here is our best comedian. Would you like to hear one of her jokes? Kate took the microphone, still wearing her grease-stained coveralls, from working on the station's power systems. Okay, here's one for you. Why did the space miner cross the asteroid belt? She paused for effect, to get to the other side. The silence from the Zephyrian ship lasted for 43 minutes. When they finally responded, their transmission was filled with static, as if their communication systems were malfunctioning. Repeat previous statement. What strategic objective is achieved by crossing to the other side? Kate laughed so hard she nearly fell off her chair. That's the joke. There is no strategic objective. It's funny because it doesn't make sense. Ugh. Zephyrian ship remained in position for 6 hours, apparently trying to analyze the meaning behind Kate's joke. Finally, they transmitted a single message: data insufficient for tactical analysis, requesting additional intelligence support. Similar scenes played out across human space. On the agricultural world of New Iowa, Mayor Sam Parker organized the colonists to respond to Zephyrian surveillance by broadcasting their weekly cooking show. Chef Maria Santos demonstrated how to make authentic Earth tacos while discussing the philosophical implications of adding cheese to vegetables. The Zephyrian observers transmitted frantic reports to their command ships. Human food preparation involves unnecessary complexity. They combine multiple ingredients with no apparent nutritional optimization. The cooking process includes discussion of abstract concepts with no practical application. Purpose unknown. The breakthrough came when Dr. Foster was reviewing intelligence intercepts at 3 a.m. The Zephyrian military computers were devoting enormous processing power to analyzing human behavior patterns. They had created thousands of tactical simulations, trying to predict human actions, but every simulation failed because humans consistently acted in ways that made no military sense. General Brooks, Alan called excitedly. You need to see this. The Zephyrians have allocated 60% of their fleet's computing power to solving what they call the human puzzle. Their own tactical planning is suffering because they can't stop trying to figure us out. Nancy hurried to the command center. What exactly are they trying to figure out? Everything. Why we keep pets, why we create art, why we tell jokes, why we grow flowers instead of just food crops, why we play music, why we dance. To them, every human activity that doesn't serve a direct military purpose is a potential secret weapon they need to understand. Dr. Mitchell looked up from her psychological analysis reports. General, I think we can take this further. If the Zephyrians are obsessed with finding tactical meaning in our cultural activities, we should give them more activities to analyze. Within 24 hours, Nancy had authorized what military historians would later call Operation Confusion. Every human settlement, station, and ship received new standing orders. When contacted by Zephyrian forces, they were to respond not with military posturing, but with displays of human culture and creativity. The results exceeded all expectations. When Zephyrian scouts approached the research station at Alpha Centauri, Director Paul Lewis welcomed them by broadcasting a live poetry reading. When they asked about the tactical significance of rhyming words, Paul explained that poetry was beautiful language that expressed human emotions. The Zephyrian response came 12 hours later. Human communication patterns include non-essential linguistic structures. Purpose appears decorative rather than functional. This defies all known evolutionary logic. Station engineer Lisa Brown added to the confusion by organizing an impromptu singing contest among the research staff. The Zephyrians recorded every note, analyzing the mathematical relationships between frequencies and searching for hidden codes in the lyrics. By the end of the week, Zephyrian fleet movements had slowed to a crawl. Their ships sat motionless in space while their computers worked around the clock, trying to decode the strategic significance of human lullabies, the tactical advantage of flower gardens, and the military purpose of birthday parties. General Brooks stood in the command center, watching as red dots representing Zephyrian ships remained stationary on the star charts. For the first time since the war began, human colonies were safe, not because of superior firepower or defensive shields, but because the enemy was too confused to attack. "General," Kelly called from her station, "we're intercepting a transmission from the Zephyrian High Command. They're classifying human behavior as tactically incomprehensible and requesting guidance from their supreme leadership." War Admiral Klexter stood in the central command chamber of the Zephyrian flagship Absolute Victory, staring at tactical displays that showed something unprecedented in the Empire's 3,000-year history. Across 12 different star systems, Zephyrian fleets sat motionless while their computers struggled to analyze human behavior patterns that defied all military logic. The War Admiral's four arms moved across control panels as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Each one was more baffling than the last. On mining station Alpha 7, humans had responded to reconnaissance by organizing something called a dance contest. On New Iowa, colonists were broadcasting cooking demonstrations that included discussions about the emotional significance of food. On the research station at Alpha Centauri, humans spent their time creating poetry and music for no discernible tactical purpose. Sub-Commander Vexlin approached with the latest analysis from the Yell Intelligence Division. His movements were jerky and uncertain, unusual for a Zephyrian military officer. "War Admiral, our tactical computers have been running continuous simulations for 72 hours. They cannot determine the strategic purpose behind human cultural activities." Klexter turned his large black eyes toward his subordinate. "Explain." "The humans appear to expend significant resources on activities that provide no military advantage. They grow plants solely for visual appeal. They create sounds in mathematical patterns they call music that serve no communication function. They perform synchronized movements called dancing that improve neither combat effectiveness nor operational efficiency." The War Admiral's head tilted, a sign of deep confusion. "And our computers believe these activities are deception operations?" "That is the current hypothesis. However, the mathematical models cannot determine what strategic objective such deception would serve. The humans appear to engage in these activities, even when they believe they are unobserved. On Earth, the human leadership was beginning to understand the full scope of their accidental advantage. President Helen Garcia met with General Nancy Brooks in the Oval Office, reviewing reports from colonies across human space. The results of Operation Confusion were beyond their wildest expectations. "Nancy, are you telling me that we're winning? A war with dance contests and cooking shows? General Brooks nodded, though she still found it hard to believe herself. The Zephyrians have reallocated most of their fleet's computing power to analyzing human culture. Their tactical planning capabilities have been severely compromised. Some of their ships are literally dead in space while their computers try to solve the strategic significance of knock-knock jokes. Dr. Alan Foster entered the office carrying a stack of intercepted communications. Madam President, the situation is even more interesting than we thought. The Zephyrians don't just find our behavior confusing. It's causing what appears to be psychological stress among their commanders. President Garcia raised an eyebrow. Psychological stress? I thought they didn't have emotions. They don't, in the way we understand emotions. But their minds are built around logical patterns and predictable outcomes. When they encounter something that doesn't fit their framework, it creates a kind of mental feedback loop. They can't stop trying to solve the puzzle of human behavior. The president made a decision. That would escalate the confusion campaign to new levels. Dr. Foster, I want you to work with our best creative minds. If we're going to confuse them, let's do it properly. Within hours, the newly created Department of Strategic Confusion was operational. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hayes, a former stand-up comedian who had joined the military after the Zephyrian threat emerged, found himself in command of the most unusual military unit in human history. His orders were simple: organize humanity's creative talents into the most bewildering display of culture the galaxy had ever seen. The plan went into effect simultaneously across all human territories. On Mars, Commander Steve Adams received his instructions with enthusiasm. When the Zephyrian Grand Fleet arrived at the Mars orbital stations, they found something that no military computer could have predicted. Station Olympus had transformed its main hangar bay into what humans called a dance floor. Crew members from all 3 orbital stations had gathered for what the humans announced as the galaxy's largest impromptu dance-off. Commander Adams took the microphone and addressed both the assembled humans and the confused Zephyrian fleet. Ladies and gentlemen, and our Zephyrian guests watching from space, welcome to Mars Station Saturday Night Fever. Tonight we're going to show you some of Earth's greatest cultural achievements: the electric slide, breakdancing, the Macarena, and the time warp. The music began, and 300 humans started performing synchronized dance moves, while DJ Patricia Lee provided running commentary. Okay, everyone, 5 steps to the right. Now clap. Now rock step and slide to the left. Remember, it's all about having fun. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship Eternal Conquest, War Commander Thexfall watched the display with growing agitation. His tactical computers were recording every movement, analyzing the mathematical relationships between human positions, searching for hidden military significance. Computer, analyze human movement patterns. Determine tactical objective. The ships. Artificial intelligence responded after a long pause. Analysis incomplete. Human movements follow rhythmic patterns synchronized to mathematical sound frequencies. Physical positioning appears random yet coordinated. No tactical advantage detected. Recommend additional data collection. Dexfall's forearms moved frantically across his control panels. Expand analysis parameters. Cross-reference with all known military maneuvers. 3 hours later, the computer was still analyzing. The humans had moved on to something called breakdancing, where individuals performed acrobatic movements that seemed to defy practical physics. One human male spun on his head while others formed a circle around him, cheering and clapping. Dr. Claire Mitchell, monitoring Zephyrian communications from Earth, was amazed by their response. General Brooks, they're treating this like the most complex military operation they've ever encountered. They've deployed their entire intelligence analysis division to decode the strategic meaning of the robot dance. Back on Mars, the dance-off continued. Engineer Kate Williams had taken the floor and was demonstrating something called the moonwalk, sliding backward while appearing to walk forward. The crowd of humans cheered wildly, not because the movement served any practical purpose, but simply because it looked amazing, and Kate was clearly enjoying herself. The Zephyrian response was immediate and dramatic. Communication channels lit up with frantic military traffic as fleet commanders tried to explain what they were observing to their superiors. Human female demonstrates impossible locomotion technique. Appears to move in reverse while maintaining forward orientation. Possible. Gravitation manipulation technology. Recommend immediate tactical analysis. Negative. Movement appears to be illusion created by foot positioning. No technology detected. Purpose remains unknown. All human subjects exhibit elevated vocal frequencies and repetitive palm contact. Possible communication system or threat display. Dr. Foster, monitoring the transmissions, began to laugh. They think cheering and clapping might be a threat display. They're analyzing everything as potential military technology. The confusion reached its peak when the humans introduced line dancing. Hundreds of people performing identical movements in perfect synchronization, while country music played over the station speakers. To human eyes, it was a fun community activity. To Zephyrian tactical computers, it looked like the most sophisticated military drill they had ever observed. War Admiral Klexter personally took command of the analysis. Computer, the humans demonstrate perfect unit coordination without apparent command structure. Determine leadership hierarchy and command protocols. Analysis indicates no hierarchical command structure. All participants appear to be following auditory rhythm patterns. Leadership appears to rotate randomly based on individual initiative. That is impossible. Military units require command structure, confirmed impossible by current tactical doctrine. However, observation data is conclusive. Humans demonstrate coordinated action without traditional command hierarchy. The War Admiral's mind struggled to process this information. In Zephyrian society, every action required clear authorization from superiors. The concept of hundreds of individuals spontaneously coordinating their actions for no strategic purpose was literally incomprehensible. As the dance-off continued into its fifth hour, Zephyrian ships began showing signs of system strain. Their computers were overheating from constant analysis, and their tactical planning software was beginning to malfunction. Error messages flooded Zephyrian command centers as military. AI systems encountered logical paradoxes they couldn't resolve. Breakthrough came when DJ Patricia Lee introduced the crowd to something called freestyle dancing. She announced that everyone should just move however the music makes you feel and express your individual creativity. The Zephyrian fleet's response was system-wide panic. 300 humans began dancing in completely different ways, each following their own interpretation of the music. No pattern, no coordination, no tactical objective beyond personal expression and enjoyment. War Commander Thexval sat alone in his command chamber, surrounded by the soft glow of emergency lighting. His flagship's main computers had been offline for 18 hours, victims of what Zephyrian technicians were calling analytical cascade. Failure. The same problem was spreading throughout the fleet as more ships attempted to process the data from the human dance demonstration. The war commander had made a decision that violated every protocol in Zephyrian military doctrine. He was going to communicate directly with the humans, not through official channels or tactical computers, but ship to ship. He needed answers, and he needed them before his entire fleet became completely non-functional. Thexval activated this communication array manually, bypassing the damaged analytical systems. His message was transmitted on all human frequencies. Human vessel Terra's Pride, this is War Commander Thexval. I request immediate communication with Ambassador Lisa Carter. The response came within minutes. Lisa's voice carried across space. with warmth and concern that the war commander found deeply unsettling. War Commander Thexville, this is Ambassador Carter. I'm glad to hear from you. How can I help? Ambassador Carter, I must ask direct questions about human tactical doctrine. My fleet's analytical systems have encountered severe malfunctions attempting to process your species' behavior patterns. There was a pause, then what sounded like barely suppressed laughter. War Commander, I think there might be a misunderstanding. We don't have a tactical doctrine for dancing and singing. People do those things because they enjoy them. Explain the strategic purpose of enjoying activities. There is no strategic purpose. That's what makes it enjoyable. We dance because the music makes us feel good. We sing because it's fun. We tell jokes because laughter makes us happy. Thexville's head tilted as he processed this information. You expend energy and resources on activities that provide no tactical advantage and serve no strategic objective. This behavior serves what purpose in your species' survival strategy? It helps us survive emotionally and mentally. Happiness and fun make life worth living. They help us stay strong when times are difficult. The war commander stared at his communication panel. This explanation created more questions than it answered. Ambassador Carter, I will present you with a tactical scenario. Your response will help my analysts understand human strategic thinking. I'm listening. A chicken wishes to cross a road. What strategic objective drives this action? The silence that followed lasted so long that Thexville wondered if the communication link had failed. When Lisa finally responded, her voice was shaking with what he could only assume was some form of distress. War Commander, that's not a tactical scenario. That's the setup to one of humanity's oldest jokes. The answer is to get to the other side. It's funny because it's such a simple answer to what seems like a complex question. Thexville felt something he had never experienced before, a sensation that might have been panic if Zephyrians were capable of panic. You are stating that the chicken's objective is merely to reach the opposite side of the road? There is no deeper strategic meaning? That's correct. Sometimes the simple answer is the right answer. And sometimes we ask questions not because we need answers, but because the questions themselves are amusing. The war commander's communication system recorded his next words, though he was barely aware of speaking them aloud. This is impossible. All actions must serve a purpose. All questions must seek useful information. This is the foundation of rational thought. War Commander, maybe that's the difference between our species. Humans don't always need their actions to serve a purpose beyond making them happy. We find joy in small things, beauty in simple things, and meaning in connections with others. Thexville disconnected the communication and sat in the darkness of his command chamber. His ship's computers were still offline, but he no longer needed them to understand what was happening. The humans had not been using psychological warfare or deception tactics. They had simply been behaving like humans, and that natural behavior was more disruptive to Zephyrian military doctrine than any weapon could have been. Meanwhile, on Europa, Colony Administrator Tom Baker was implementing the next phase of operation. Confusion, though he didn't know it had an official name. His instructions from Earth Command were simple. Engage the Zephyrians in conversation and be yourself. When the Zephyrian scout ship Precise Strike established communication with Europa Colony, Tom decided to try something that had been popular on Earth for generations. Zephyrian vessel, this is Colony Administrator Tom Baker. Welcome to Europa. Before we discuss serious matters, would you like to play a game? The response came after a 40-minute delay. Define game. It's called 20 questions. I think of something, and you ask yes or no questions to try to guess what it is. You get 20 questions to figure it out. What tactical advantage does this exercise provide? Tom grinned at his communication officer. No tactical advantage. It's just fun. Are you willing to try? Another long pause. Very well. We will attempt this game. Present your scenario. Okay, I'm thinking of something. You have 20 questions to guess what it is. Remember, you can only ask questions that can be answered with yes or no. What followed was perhaps the strangest military engagement in galactic history. The crew of the Precise Strike spent 6 hours asking methodical questions about Tom's mystery object, which turned out to be a rubber duck from the colony's recreation center. Is it larger than a Zephyrian warrior? No. Does it serve a military function? No. Does it provide sustenance? No. Does it serve any practical purpose? Well, not really. Some people think rubber ducks are cute, and they float in bathtubs, which some humans find relaxing. The Zephyrian crew consumed their entire question allotment trying to understand why humans would create an object that served no practical purpose but was considered cute. Their final transmission was a request for the definition of cute, followed by specifications for earth-bathing rituals and the tactical significance of relaxation. News of the 20 questions game spread through the Zephyrian fleet faster than official communications. Within hours, every Zephyrian ship in human space was attempting to understand how humans could create objects, solely because they were cute and engage in activities for no purpose other than relaxation. Dr. Claire Mitchell, monitoring the communications from Earth Command, watched as the Zephyrian intelligence network became overwhelmed with requests for analysis of human concepts like cute, fun, relaxing, and enjoyable. Their military computers were dedicating enormous processing power to solving what they perceived as the most complex strategic puzzle in galactic history. The situation escalated when engineer Kate Williams, working with colony administrator Tom Baker, introduced the Zephyrians to practical jokes. During a routine communication with the scout ship, Kate announced that the colony was implementing new defense protocols. Zephyrian vessel, please be advised that we are deploying our new defensive measures. They are highly advanced and completely invisible. The Precise Strike immediately went to high alert. Human colony, specify nature of defensive measures. Our sensors detect no weapon systems or shield generators. Kate waited exactly 10 seconds before responding. April Fools. There are no defenses. That was a joke. We were just kidding. The silence from the Zephyrian ship lasted for 3 hours. When they finally responded, their transmission was filled with static and seemed to be coming from multiple crew members simultaneously. Human colony. Explain tactical purpose of providing false information, followed by immediate correction. It's called a practical joke or a prank. We do it to surprise people and make them laugh. It's harmless fun. You deliberately provide incorrect tactical intelligence for the purpose of creating surprise and laughter? Exactly. Though we only do it with friends, and we always let them know it was a joke right away. The Zephyrian response revealed the depth of their confusion. You consider us friends? Despite the fact that we represent a military force sent to conquer your territory? Kate paused, realizing she had stumbled into something profound. Well, yeah. You seem like decent folks, just trying to do your job. We don't really want to fight you. We'd rather be friends and find a way to get along. This transmission was forwarded to every Zephyrian command ship in the fleet. The concept that humans could consider enemy soldiers as potential friends, and that they would engage in harmless deception for the purpose of creating surprise and laughter, created what Zephyrian analysts would later describe as a total conceptual breakdown. Captain Jake Morrison, monitoring the situation from the Terra's Pride, realized that the confusion campaign had achieved something unprecedented. The Zephyrian fleet was not just paralyzed by analysis overload. They were beginning to question their fundamental understanding of how intelligent species should behave. The breakthrough came when War Commander HFY made his second direct communication with Ambassador Lisa Carter. This time, His transmission was not routed through official military channels, but sent as a personal message. Ambassador Carter, I must ask a question that may violate military protocol. Are humans capable of forming emotional attachments to beings they have never physically encountered? War Admiral Klexter stood before the assembled Supreme Council of the Zephyrian Empire, facing the most humiliating moment in his military career. Behind him, holographic displays showed the current status of his invasion fleet, 47. Capital ships sitting motionless in human space, their tactical computers offline, their crews struggling to process concepts that had no equivalent in Zephyrian language or thought. Supreme War Leader Dexmorth, a massive Zephyrian with 6 arms, instead of the usual 4, spoke in the mathematical tones that indicated highest authority. War Admiral Klexter explained why the mightiest fleet in Zephyrian history has been neutralized by a species that possesses no advanced weaponry and employs no recognizable military tactics. Klexter's 4 arms moved nervously as he consulted his data tablets. Supreme War Leader, human tactical doctrine appears to be based entirely on activities that serve no military purpose. They respond to our presence by broadcasting entertainment, creating art, playing games, and engaging in social bonding rituals. Our computers cannot process strategic information that has no strategic content. Are you stating that this species has defeated our fleet using activities that have no military value? That is correct, Supreme War Leader. The humans appear to be genuinely engaging in these activities for purposes they describe as fun, happiness, and emotional fulfillment. Our analytical systems cannot identify deception because there appears to be no deception. Supreme War Leader. Dexmorth S6 arms gestured in patterns that indicated extreme displeasure. This is impossible. All intelligent species must possess survival-based logical frameworks. Entertainment and emotional fulfillment are inefficient resource expenditures. Supreme War Leader, I request permission to make a proposal that violates established military doctrine. The council chamber fell silent. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian history, no military commander had ever requested permission to violate doctrine. Explain your proposal. I wish to travel personally to Earth and meet with human leadership. I believe direct communication may provide insights that remote observation cannot achieve. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Helen Garcia sat in the Oval Office with an expression that mixed amazement, concern, and barely controlled laughter. General Nancy Brooks had just delivered the most surreal military briefing in human history. Madam President, Zephyrian fleet movements have completely stopped. Their ships are holding position while their computers attempt to analyze the strategic significance of cat videos. Cat videos? Yesterday, Colony Administrator Tom Baker responded to a Zephyrian inquiry about human information networks by showing them our internet. He started with educational content, but somehow the conversation shifted to funny animal videos. The Zephyrians have now allocated 18% of their fleet's computing power to analyzing why humans create and share recordings of domestic cats performing amusing actions. Dr. Alan Foster entered the office carrying the latest intelligence. Reports. Madam President, we're receiving a direct communication from the Zephyrian Supreme Command. War Admiral Klexter is requesting permission to visit Earth for face-to-face negotiations. President Garcia stood and walked to the window overlooking the White House gardens. In the distance, she could see tourists taking photographs, children playing on the lawn, and couples holding hands as they walked. Normal human activities that had somehow become the most effective weapons in galactic history. Dr. Foster, Dr. Mitchell, General Brooks, I want your honest assessment. Are we ready to meet with their Supreme Commander? Dr. Claire Mitchell spoke first. Madam President, everything we've learned suggests that direct exposure to human culture, might be overwhelming for a Zephyrian leader. Their minds aren't equipped to process emotional and creative expression. What are you recommending? I think we should meet with him, but carefully. We need to introduce him gradually to human concepts, starting with the simplest ones and building up to more complex emotional ideas. President Garcia made her decision. Send a message to War Admiral Klexter. Tell him he's welcome to visit Earth, but he comes alone, no weapons, no recording devices. Just him and an open mind. 3 days later, War Admiral Klexter stood in the rose garden of the White House, experiencing sensations that had no equivalent in Zephyrian experience. The smell of flowers, the sound of birds singing, the sight of colorful plants that served no tactical purpose but existed solely because humans found them beautiful. President Garcia approached with Ambassador Lisa Carter and Dr. Alan Foster. She had decided to be completely honest with their visitor, believing that truth was humanity's greatest weapon in this strange war. War Admiral Klexter, welcome to Earth. I'm President Garcia. Thank you for coming. The massive alien looked down at her with his large black eyes. President Garcia, I have traveled here because my species' military doctrine has encountered a complete systemic failure when applied to human behavior. I require understanding of your tactical methodology. War Admiral, that's exactly what I want to talk to you about. The truth is, we don't have a tactical methodology. Everything your forces have observed, the dancing, the singing, the jokes, the games, those aren't weapons or strategies. That's just how humans live. Klexter's head tilted in the characteristic Zephyrian expression of confusion. You are stating that your species engages in non-productive activities as a standard behavior pattern? That's right. We work to survive and build our civilization, but we also play, create art, tell stories, and form emotional bonds because those things make our lives meaningful and enjoyable. Dr. Foster stepped forward. War Admiral, may I show you something that might help? Explain human nature? He gestured toward a corner of the garden where a young girl was playing with a golden retriever, Buddy from the Terra's Pride, who had become something of a celebrity since the first diplomatic meeting. The child was throwing a stick, and the dog was chasing it and bringing it back, both of them clearly enjoying the simple game. War Admiral, that little girl and that dog are engaged in an activity that serves no survival purpose. The stick has no value, throwing it accomplishes no objective, and retrieving it provides no tactical advantage. But look at their faces. They're happy. Klexter stared at the scene for several minutes. The juvenile human and the domestic animal are expending energy for no measurable gain, yet their behavior patterns suggest positive emotional states. Exactly. They're playing because it's fun. Fun is its own reward. President Garcia decided to take the ultimate risk. War Admiral, would you like to try something that might help you understand human nature better? Explain. I'd like to tell you a joke. Not to confuse you or gain tactical advantage, but because sharing humor is one of the ways humans connect with each other. Klexter considered this for a long moment. Very well. Present your joke. Why don't scientists trust atoms? The War Admiral waited, clearly expecting tactical intelligence, because they make up everything. The silence that followed was the longest of President Garcia's political career. Klexter's forearms moved in complex patterns as his mind tried to process the play on words, the unexpected connection between scientific concepts, and the double meaning of make-up. Finally, he spoke. This is a manipulation of language structure to create unexpected meaning connections. The humor derives from the cognitive surprise when the listener realizes the dual interpretation of make-up. That's exactly right. War Admiral, you understand the mechanics of the joke. But I do not understand why this linguistic manipulation would produce positive emotional responses. Dr. Mitchell joined the conversation. War Admiral, humor is one of the ways humans process complex ideas and connect with each other. When we share a joke, we're sharing a moment of mutual understanding and pleasure. You derive pleasure from understanding? Among other things, yes. Humans are curious creatures. We enjoy learning, discovering, creating, and sharing experiences with others. Klexter stood silently in the garden for nearly an hour, watching the child play with the dog, observing the flowers that bloomed for no tactical purpose, listening to birds that sang for no strategic objective. When he finally spoke, his voice carried something that sounded almost like wonder. President Garcia, I believe I am beginning to comprehend why your species represents a category unknown threat to Zephyrian military doctrine. You have developed beyond the survival imperatives that drive most species. Your motivations include concepts that our tactical frameworks cannot process. War Admiral, what if instead of viewing us as a threat, your people considered us as potential teachers? We could share our understanding of creativity, humor, and emotional fulfillment, while learning from your organizational skills and technological advances. The proposal hung in the air between them, representing a choice that would determine the future of both species. War Admiral Klexter looked around the garden one more time, taking in the chaotic beauty of human creativity and the simple joy of a child playing with her pet. President Garcia, I will present your proposal to the Supreme Council. However, I must warn you that convincing my people to value fun and emotional fulfillment may be the greatest strategic challenge in Zephyrian history.